Danny Lundquist is the CEO of the Chicken Coop Company. He acquired the business in 2023 and grew it into a powerhouse in the chicken coop space, selling chicken coops across the country. Danny, welcome to How I Bought This. I want to learn about how you acquired your first business and how you really got into the whole entrepreneurship game.
I come from a dozen years or so in tech. So I was in the tech sales world. Started off just grinding the phones, got into sales leadership, ran sales teams, and did that for about a dozen years. It was kind of crazy. Like in 2016, 2017, my wife and I were like, you know what? I don't think I'm going to sell tech the rest of my life. I just don't feel it, you know? And I don't know why. I was in the best job ever. We were building something. I'd worked for big companies. I'd worked for Oracle before and then went to a startup here in Minnesota and built that thing. And I just fell in love with that. A great team. I'm a builder and I knew that. And even after, 3-4 years in sales leadership, I started to get a little antsy. Your role changes, but in that company, it was pretty cool where we were always changing direction. Product was, serving a different use case or solving a different need. So I was always like interested each year. And then we went through a period of time where we actually divested part of that company and they had a job for me. And I said, I don't know if I want to do that anymore. And my wife and I, back in like 2016, we put sort of this stake in the ground that said, after I'm done with this company, we're going to take 12 months off before I jump into the next tech gig and, give it the next 3 years of my life. You all know, George, you get it. Like if you're going to get into tech and you're going to build something, like buckle up, it's all in for long haul, right? And so before we jump off and do that again, because I knew I was a builder, I knew I wanted to do that. We just said, we'll take a year off from tech. And I don't know why, George, like our kids were in school. We didn't really have any big dreams of what we wanted to do. And we were thinking about, all right, well, what would we do with our life? Maybe we'll go do world schooling, or maybe we'll go, we're involved with our church. So maybe we'll go over and do like service work or missions work or something, or, who knows what we're going to do. And by the way, I'm in tech. So if we ever sold or went public, we'd have like a 2-year runway to figure it out. Okay. Well, little did I know I had about a month to figure it out when they said, hey, here's a new job. And I started to like pick my head up and think, maybe I don't actually want to do this job anymore. Well, if I don't do it, do we actually go back to that stake in the ground that we put in and say, we're going to take a year off. We're not going to jump into tech. So it's kind of a crazy time for us because we made a promise to ourselves, decided we'd leave. I had to make a decision if I wanted to stay at this company. Anyway, chose to leave that organization and do the year. We didn't get to travel the world or anything, but we said, let's build a business. We don't know what it'll be, but let's start. And I know this is a long story, and I know this isn't a Joe Rogan 4-hour podcast, but
So you took 12 months, you took 12 months off. And then during that time, you were like, I'm going to start a business. And then this is how you started the concrete business.
yeah,
Right.
exactly. And it was like when you jump off the cliff, I didn't know what I wanted to do. So I just thought of, well, like, what am I good at? What do I like to do? And in the tech companies, I ran customer success or customer experience sales teams. So everything post sale and running big customer sets at scale, like 3-4 reps handling thousands of customers. And how that sort of transferred into concrete business was I started a little consulting business to help, I thought, growth stage companies figure out their scale issue and still love on their customers. And I found a niche. I found service-based businesses struggle communicating with customers. I mean, think about it. Have you ever had a contractor that communicates well? They're tough to find. And it's just the owners doing everything. If they don't send the email, no one does. If they don't make the phone call, no one does. If they don't send the love, no one does. So I found this little niche. And so I worked with this little concrete company and I was still figuring out what I wanted to do. And so I actually called all of his customers for a whole summer and just said, hey, what could we have done better? What do you think? Because he wanted to grow his business by $1 million, but didn't want to hire another crew. And so I called his customers and I said, hey, if you did this one thing for your customer base, they'd pay for it. And 2, they hate that you don't do it. And that's just sealing concrete.
Mm-hmm.
So when you pour a new concrete slab, you're supposed to seal it. And if you don't, especially in Minnesota, it all cracks and crumbles. So he would tell the customers to do it and they wouldn't do it. And I learned that by making these phone calls. I learned that 75% of his customer base wouldn't seal their own concrete. So his concrete was all going unprotected and his customers were mad because they felt like they should, but they couldn't. So I told the guy, I said, hey, here's a business opportunity. You could grow $1 million probably. Just offer this. And he said, no, can't do it.
Hold on, Danny. I've got so many questions on this. And I think like before we get into like why he wouldn't do this, I really want to double click on like your motivation. So you said, leading up to starting this business, you said, hey, my wife and I, we're going to put a stake in the ground. We're not going to do these tech sales forever. I think there's a lot of people that are probably in this position of like, I mean, let's be real. Tech sales is a lucrative business. I think there's a pretty big opportunity cost for leaving that. And so I really want to understand was your motivation for planting that stake and wanting to leave, was it A, like, I really just don't like the work that I'm doing, or like I don't like the industry? Or two, was there more of like, I'm not enjoying the additional benefits that I'm getting from working in tech. Like, hey, I'm making great money, but I don't ever get to see my kids, and I need to ask for 2 weeks off of vacation. So is it more like I don't like the industry and I don't like my job, or I don't like the lifestyle that comes with working in this industry?
That's a good question. It doesn't really like when I've reflected quite a bit on this and why I am the way I am. My wife yells at me for the way I am a lot because I'm always dreaming. But I think that's part of it is I'm a bit of a dreamer. And the tech gig it wasn't hard. I mean, tech sales can be a grind. It can be really tough. It's always stressful at the end of every single quarter, regardless of the position you're in. You're always starting back at zero. You've got this goal oriented mindset where you're always chasing the next thing and you never actually get it. You might hit your number, but guess what? You get a bigger number the next year. That I think is good for me. I like that because it's always changing. So I love my job. And the last few years when I started to get bored, I think I learned that even though I was making really good money, I had a great team. So I was literally like manning Slack in the last year or two because the team had everything covered and I was hitting my number and my boss was like, cool, keep doing what you're doing. And I had friends say, go get good at golf. I know you're bored, but like go do other things. But I think in sales leadership too, especially in tech and hyper growth, as a leader, you can't be checked out and expect your team to hustle. It just doesn't work. I couldn't do it. So I was wasting time. So I think for me, I was successful. Things were going pretty easy. I was okay at what I did. But I was bored. And it was for me, it was that drive to go do something challenging. And it was kind of weird, the whole money thing. You make a lot of money in tech and then you go off and start your own thing. You're not promised anything, but you have this belief after being in sales that you can go make it happen. I sold books door to door for 3 summers in college, and that puts a little fire in your belly on you can go do anything and make anything because you move to another state, find a place to live and have $300 in your pocket and have to survive by selling books. So I don't know. I think I just have it in my belly to go do something hard.
So this concrete business, so you did the consulting gig for the concrete guy and you needed to put ceiling on it and he wasn't willing to do it. And was that the forcing function to be like, I guess I'll do it then?
Yeah, exactly. I wanted to start a business. I left the career to do it. And I have this opportunity glaring me in the face that there's a business there. Another thing I did is I just called 10 contractors in the South Metro here and asked them if they would come steal my concrete. And only 2 of them would, and they would charge me an arm and a leg to do it. So I had validated the opportunity a little bit, at least in my region, that these homeowners don't actually have a solution. So you couple that with, I've got a guy who knows what he's doing. I've talked to a whole market that says they'd buy it. Why would I not start this business? And this is kind of weird though. Well, one of the biggest whys was, oh, I'm a VP of sales. Oh, I'm a consultant. And now I'm a contractor. To answer your question, Jeff, I think a lot of people, they don't make the jump, or they do have a dream, or they hate their job, or things are just, they're bored and they want to do something more, but they are too afraid to lose that title or that pride or that whatever it is that keeps people doing stuff they shouldn't be doing.
Yeah, it's so funny because George and I were actually talking about this. I went through a very similar, like kind of a similar story in terms of I was working in something that I thought was prestigious. And I was like, I don't really want to do this anymore. But there was like a real piece of ego that was hard to leave behind to be like, hey, I sell candy. That's what I do. And now like I absolutely wouldn't look back and do it.
Oh, that's so good. Yeah, I know but it does tie you down. It can hold you back. Not to get into a bigger topic, and I'm not an expert in this topic, but I think if you do hate your job and you do hate your life, or it is killing you and it is bad for you and it is against what you should be doing with your time, I think a lot of anxiety and mental illness and stuff comes from people's inability to lay down what they know is bad for them.
Yeah, I guess that's probably a bigger topic to dive.
Yeah, we won't get into that, but
back to the contracting business. So you started the contracting business, and I think like a point here that I really want to hammer home, because like what you've talked about and a few of our other guests have, is like kind of what laid the foundation was doing the due diligence and like talking to the business owners to see like, hey, is there a market here? Because a lot of people want to buy a business, but I feel like that's the first step that they should do. And nobody seems to be doing it, talking to business owners.
I just think I'm not that smart. I just think this was so obvious. And it wasn't a unique position too, where I had I had access to a concrete company's customer base. So one thing we did, we deployed a CRM for him. We put in, automated his whole estimate process and his, automated emails and workflow follow up and things like that. So I knew his customer base. I knew his business pretty well. So that was, I think, an inside scoop that I had that I don't think normal people would get if you were just looking to buy a business.
Okay, so the concrete business is going. You started your ceiling company, and then the Chicken Coop Company comes about. What is the Chicken Coop Company? Who are your customers?
So Jeff, is you having to lay down your prestigious job to be a candy man? Like, I'm a chicken man. You never would predict these things. You couldn't. Like, if that 2016 or whatever it was when me and my wife said, hey, we're going to do something different, would you ever guess I am a Chicken Coop Company owner and a concrete guy? Can't make it up. But this one, again, came from the consulting gig. So I did a job for a friend. He owns an e-com business, or owned an e-com business, nutraceuticals, pills, stuff you can buy over it. It's all e-com. And he had 25,000 customers, and only 2,000 of them would come back. So obviously there's a feedback loop gap. There's a delivery gap where they just not having a good experience, whatever that might be. So I just created a feedback loop for him, just to help him get more information from his customers to see where his gaps were. And he's a buddy of mine too. He moved out of state, so I didn't get to see him very often, but I knew he had a business, and I think he just wanted to help me out, honestly, with my new consulting gig. And so we did it, and it was great. And he would always like float business ideas past me. Just, hey, here's a business for sale. Want to buy it? As a joke, because I don't think he actually wanted to go into business with me. But he sent this one, and it was the Chicken Coop Company based out of Utah. And my wife and I had just gotten chickens the year before, and I had seen how they became her pets. She loved them more than she loves our French Bulldog. And they all have names, and she loved those things. And I couldn't believe how expensive the coops were and how expensive everything was. And he sent it over as a joke, and he said, hey, want to get in the backyard poultry game? Ha, ha, ha. And I looked at the website, and I looked at just the listing, because it was sold through a broker, through an online, similar to what you guys have. And I looked at the listing, and I looked at my wife, who was sitting next to me. And I'm like, you could run this thing. Like, you love chickens. Why not? This would be cool. It's an e-com business, so it won't take any work, right? It's easy. It's totally hands off, so you think. And I emailed my buddy back, and I said, yeah, let's look at it. Like, get the packet. Let's look into it. And so we did, and it was great, like from a numbers perspective. And he had already bought and sold 2 or 3 companies. So I'm not going to take the credit on doing the full eval and understanding what was good and not, but we just worked really well together on beating up the packet, beating up the numbers, and seeing where opportunity lays, and allied. And it was awesome.
Real quick, what does the Chicken Company do? And who are your customers?
Sorry. Yeah, well, we looked at the listing, and it ended up being an e-com site. So by e-com, I mean they owned all of the manufacturing for the coops. So we can manufacture any of the coops that we want. They had manufacturing outsourced for that. So it wasn't actually employees running manufacturing plants. So I didn't have a team of, 50 people to manage there. And then, so it's coops delivered to your door, almost like a piece of IKEA furniture. And it's for primarily suburban folks. So there's rural people that buy it, but a lot of times in the rural country, and you have 10 acres, you just take one of your sheds that's dilapidated and turn that into a coop. So anyway, they're really cute coops built for suburban folks that go right in your backyard, anywhere from 4 chickens up to 15 chickens.
Okay, so Danny, you had mentioned like, hey, this business looks so easy. Like, you're like, hey, to your wife, you're like, you have chickens, you could do this. But I'm guessing there has to be some type of like learning curve on this. Like, I know you guys had chickens, but did you grow up around livestock? Had you run e-commerce businesses before? Like, as your first days as CEO, just talk a little bit about like all the things that you had to learn that you didn't know you would need to learn.
Oh, I was totally naive, 100% naive. I put in 60 hours a week into that business right now. It's not an easy business right now. When I said, oh, you can just run this thing. And, every listing, you're in the business, you get it. Every single listing says, owner can step away, completely hands off, works 4 hours a week in the business. Yeah, right. Good luck to you. If you want it to just maybe stay level, or maybe just die over time. But if you're going to put effort, and you got to put your effort into something. And if you're going to put into something that you want to grow, you're going to put the best effort you can. So yeah, oh my goodness, day one learnings, Jeff. That's a big question, but I was just totally naive on it. I thought it'd be easy, simple. It ended up not being that. But some of the assumptions that we saw in the packet and that we saw in the business after the first year turned out to be completely true, which was really good, right? So they shipped everything out of a single warehouse. We set up 3PL and fulfillment centers. We saw that shipping savings cutting out 10% of gross
Wow.
profit, or I'm sorry, reducing gross profit. Sorry, increasing gross margin. Sorry, I'm all over the
Well,
place. But we could add 10% back into that line, and then that would essentially pay for the note on the loan to buy the business. So we're like, ooh, right there, that reduces the risk if we just set up. And that was just evaluating 3PLs and giving them shipping data that the sellers of the business gave us, that we were able to actually get true shipping costs and negotiate rates before we even closed the deal.
so like you get the packets and you're looking at the business and almost your due diligence, you were kind of looking for places that you guys could add value or improve, like turn the switch day one. So it
Yeah.
wasn't like these are no brainers. I'm looking for these like faculties, like I don't say the bad parts, but there's certain parts of the business that you knew you could,
Yeah.
you know, optimize for there. When you were looking at all these businesses, was there like certain metrics or industries that you were looking for?
I wasn't really looking. I can't take the credit for it. It's like, God is good. I wasn't looking for it's always fun to look, but it's a time suck. You open up one of those brokers, you're gonna lose 3 hours of your day because you get excited about looking at cash flow. And you lose your time. So I've looked at businesses during that 6, 7 month period of working and of building the consulting business, but I wasn't serious about buying anything. And so when this came across, it was like something in me just was, oh my goodness, we had chickens. I knew the market was hot. I knew it was good. And it was just kind of exciting.
Yeah. So it's almost like you had a little bit of experience for owning chickens before, and
Mhm.
then you guys, when you were looking at the P&Ls, you found these certain areas where you're like, okay, if we just do this, we can
Yeah.
service the debt and make money.
Well,
Yeah.
would it also be fair to say too, Danny, that like you saw firsthand like the enjoyment that a customer gets out of having chickens in a chicken coop? Like you saw your wife fall in love with these, and so even if it's an N of one, you like, hey, I know there's a market here because I'm experiencing it firsthand. And then it sounds like two, you actually did some due diligence and said, well, look, if we want to provide this to customers, we know some areas that we can reduce the costs and we can really make this work financially.
Yeah. That's exactly right.
Easy. How did you buy the business?
It was big, and we had to get creative too. I mean, who wants to lend to a guy who's been out of work for however many months and started their own business? So I had the concrete business, which I started that essentially the last month of the workable season, so like September, October. The concrete business only had a month or two of income that year, I guess you could say. And then that next July is when we actually closed on the chicken coop business of 2023. So we started the buying process though in February. So that
Wow.
process from February to July was brutal. It was fun. I learned a lot. I don't ever want to say the word SBA loan ever again, for one thing. At least the lenders we worked with, it was like pulling teeth. But we got it. We got the deal done. We were creative. So if any of your listeners aren't familiar with a ROBS program, it is a great tool if you have a 401k that you have access to. So that allows you to get some of your assets liquid, if you will, to buy businesses. So we have a ROBS program through an SBA loan. That's how we closed it.
And so I kind of want to touch on another point too. So, taking a step back, one, like, hey, I know there's a market. Two, we know how to improve it. We think this is a good buy. Three, we can finance it. The fourth thing I'm really curious about is like, did you talk at all to the previous owners or develop a relationship with them so that like they would stay on board? Did they stay on board? And like, how did this transition happen of I'm buying an e-commerce business that I found a listing online to actually knowing this is what I want to do, and am I going to have like good stewardship and guidance from the previous owners to be sure I'm successful?
Yeah, that's a good question. I never bought a business before, so I didn't know what was appropriate or not because we used a brokerage, right?
Yeah.
We used website closers. If you're familiar with that, it's
Yep.
primarily combos. So that's what we went through. And so you get a broker that represents you and a broker that represents the seller. And I didn't know broker, seller, buyer relationship. I've done real estate deals before, so I know you're not supposed to go right to the seller. We had calls and we learned, but then I learned that the brokers were just kind of slowing things down or weren't giving us the right information or were actually negotiating against us, which was kind of funny. Like, oh, would you remove the seller financing term? And I'm like, well, and I didn't say I've been in sales forever. And I'm like, well, if they agree to get the deal, if that gets the deal done at this price, then
Yeah.
maybe if you can go back to him and say, hey, is that enough to get the deal done? Then maybe we can consider it. He's like, well, they haven't really asked for it yet. I was just wondering. I'm like, am I negotiating against myself right now? Like, why not? So I found their phone number and I just called the owner directly and we just started closing the deal, working through terms directly, communicating why there were delays with the bank, communicating other things. So I started that relationship. They were absolutely awesome. So one of them we kept on as a partner. And so he's an equity partner today. I talked about that sort of management or that manufacturing piece. So he ran all of that side of it and he's still on board. He's still on the team. And
One of the
I
owners
did
stayed on.
one of the previous
Okay.
kind of investor owners previously, who sort of ran that manufacturing side. I didn't know if I could buy that relationship, but it worked. Like he's awesome. Couldn't do the business without him. And then the other owners, I mean, I just got a text from him this morning. So we're in touch. He helped us out just with like, hey, what about this? Here's a question about the coops. Has this ever happened to you? And he would respond right away. Just phenomenal people.
Yeah, this is really, really interesting. So it sounds like one, you've got a great relationship with the sellers, like you can text them with any questions. But two, what sounds to me like a really great play and a really great working relationship is you had somebody who was hands-on in the business who continued to partner with you. So you were able to lean on some of that intrinsic knowledge within the business. You have a bunch of history basically at your fingertips. Is that correct?
Yeah. Yep.
How did you get that guy to stay? Like, did he just not want to be out of the business? Like, why was this for sale if one of the owners wanted to stay?
So the previous owners, there were two brothers and then this other outsider, right? They started two or three other businesses, and
Yeah.
instead of selling $1,000 chicken coops, they were doing $15 million POs wholesale with this other product. So obviously, one of the main questions when you're buying a business is, it's growing like crazy. Why are you selling it? And that was a really good answer that they could give me is, hey, we chased $15 million POs here. Used to get excited about coops, but now we know we could give it more love. And we know we could grow it more, but we're putting all our eggs in here. He's like, I think what the words he used were, if I'm going to pick up a bar off the ground, I'm going to pick up the gold one, not the silver one.
Yeah. Okay. I love it. And that sounds like a great response from a seller too. Like, that's really believable.
So to answer your question, though, to answer your first question, Jeff, why the other one was why the partner was willing to stay on board is he's also involved in the other businesses with the old owners. So that's sort of the tie between why I still text them and have a connection is they're doing other games because he's not full time with me. He doesn't
Yeah.
need to be given his role. So that's how he gets to stay on. He gets to share in the ownership because we're going to grow this thing to the moon. And then he gets to see fruit from that.
This sounds like an amazing arrangement, both for the business and then also just like having a great working relationship. Can you talk a little bit too, just like, hey, day one, you have the keys, website is live, orders are coming in. Like, what did that week look like? Who was on your team supporting you? Is this just you like hounding 80 hours a week? Or talk a little bit about like the first week.
We literally had a day one checklist. That's literally what we called it, day one checklist. And it took a month to get through it. But because it seriously did. The buying process took so long. So we started in February and we worked through, pretty much had the deal done by April, but just the financing and everything to get it actually across the line until July 13th when we closed. We had a lot of time to think about, well, what are we going to do day one? Because we thought day one was going to be April 15th and then at day one. So that was actually it was kind of a gift to have that extra time. It's a Excel spreadsheet. It's probably 100 rows deep that just say what we want to do operationally and then what we want to do marketing wise. Because there was a lot of low hanging fruit in the business that we wanted to just go after. So for example, we sell coops. And if you sell a coop to somebody, you should probably sell them a feeder and a waterer and nesting pads and everything else that you need because we sell to a lot of first time chicken people. So that was a low hanging fruit. And we had to make a decision. Are we going to go after all the low hanging fruit or are we going to shore up the back end? Are we going to redo pictures? Are we going to redo the website of all the stuff that is awful on it? Are we going to, operationally, obviously on the financial side, we had to deploy new tools, new ways to measure because it was only me and my partner in the business. So my buddy, essentially.
So it sounds like you guys took this like big lofty goal and broke it down into like very, very small goals. And then
Oh, yeah.
that's what your checklist was to like go through it.
And I'm not going to take all the credit at all. I mean, my business partner, he ran data centers for US Bank. Like he ran the whole thing. He's a stud. He retired when he was 40 and bought a bunch of care homes and rental property. And he's like, yeah, he's a stud and he's a finance guy and he's an SEO genius. So I came with like the product, the customer side, and he comes with the finance and marketing side. So we're perfect fit. And he's exact opposite of me in so many ways too.
Oh, that's
That's
great. So within that like first checklist, I'm sure you're like, hey, here's all the things that we want to get done. This is a new industry for you. One thing that George and I always love to ask is just like, what are one or two things about the chicken coop industry that like most people didn't know, or like that you didn't know and surprised you?
I'm living in one of them right now. I didn't know exactly how seasonal it was. People don't buy chicken coops in the winter, or even in the South, it drops off a cliff. And that's because people like hatcheries and people who provide the chicks aren't selling chicks until the spring. So it's like this cycle. But what surprised me about the industry, chicken people are cool. Like they're really fun. And, dealing with customer success and angry customers in my past life and, working with IT directors and IT managers. Now, no offense to them and people, but it's like you get angry customers and they're still so sweet.
Yeah.
They're just really good people. I don't know. That was shocking to me is how nice the customer base is and how
I,
forgiving they are and how gentle they are. And it's good.
it's good to love your customers, right?
Yeah.
And do you have any like highs and lows? This sounds to me like the acquisition was a success, but what was like the I've made it moment? Like when did you realize like, hey, we got through our checklist and like this is taking off. This is great. Talk a little bit about when you realized like this, you made a good decision.
Shopify analytics. That was what it was. Because you can see it was funny. You see the trend. You see my hand, but you see the peak in the busy season, which you'll always get. And then it's just a slow death down to December. And then January picks up and then it's peak. And one thing that was really cool to see, like I said, we closed on July 13th. By August 15th, we had already, we saw an uptick when normally it would just be going down. So we started a whole new trajectory, still had the downward curve, a good 100, 50 to 100% growth over, at least in those slow months, over the previous year. So that was validating. It was, all right, we redid the marketing, redid the SEO, did the changes we thought we should do and could do, and it resulted in a bump in sales. So that was great. And we carried that for the next year and a half. It was 40 to 40% growth every single month, not month over month, but at least year over year, which was great because it is validation for the efforts that we put in, at least in the first year and a half.
Yeah, with like growth and like an e-commerce business like you have, like one of the big questions like I have, particularly for the size of your product, is how do you really ship a chicken coop?
I'm learning all about, like I've had to learn shipping because we talk about dropping COGS. How in the world do you get your manufacturing costs down while increasing quality? That was another thing is we saw so much low hanging fruit on how we could improve the coops that we build. And so we put a lot of effort into improving them and making them stronger. Meanwhile, you have to offset that cost by hopefully getting new shipping agreements. We did learn that there is this magic 130-inch measurement at FedEx where if you're above that, it's an extra $180 to ship that box. If you're below it, that $180, $150 fee just goes away. So we were shipping all these boxes with that fee on there, which if we ship 3-4 boxes per coop, I mean, you do the math there, that's a lot of money. We're spending a lot of money on shipping. Like FedEx loves us. But one thing we did is we just engineered our coops differently so that we ship one more box, but now all of our boxes are below that 130-inch measurement. So that just wiped our shipping costs significantly.
Okay, so you're using FedEx, and
Yep.
like one of the key things it sounds like maybe in that checklist that you had from day one, month one was like, is there a way we can reposition this to save, hundreds of dollars on shipping?
And we didn't see the box design as a problem because we didn't actually know. We thought that's just what it costs to ship a box that big because they're big. I mean, they're big. So the one area of savings that we did find though was leveraging a 3PL who already had negotiated rates with FedEx that were better than what the previous owner did. So that was awesome because that was just immediately 10% savings on the old owner's shipping costs. But we didn't know that we could even get another 25% reduction by just redesigning the boxes. That came after seeing how much we were spending in shipping and still hating it and thinking there has to be a better way.
Danny, why don't you think the previous owners, like you found this 10% savings right off the bat by going to a 3PL? Like, was this they were just so busy with other ventures that they didn't pay attention to these details, or do you have any hypotheses around like why you saw something that they couldn't?
I don't know. Maybe they didn't. Maybe they just didn't see it. Maybe they did something a certain way because they started the company. Right? They started it 8 years earlier, and you do things a certain way, and you get better and better. I'll put it this way: just like the box redesign, I didn't see that right away. That took learning. That took evolution of our process before we even saw that aha moment. So they just probably hadn't got to that aha yet.
I think it's, we're just opining here, like, we'll probably never know, but I do think that there is something about being a small business owner where you kind of just get stuck in doing things the way that they've always been done. And it's always great to have like a fresh pair of eyes come in and start asking questions. Like George pushes me all the time on questions like, hey, why aren't you doing X, Y, Z? And I'm like, it's just because we haven't done it before. So maybe that's a good lesson for all SMBs out there is like, take a step back, ask yourself questions why you do the things that you do.
I think the biggest thing I like push Jeff's
sure.
business on is like why he doesn't wholesale his candy. And both you guys have kind of taken the same stance of like, we're not gonna wholesale. So
How about this? You have an idea, a new idea, and you've said no to it. How many times do you have to say no to that idea? Like every 6 months it pops back. Well, should we do it? We've already said no. No, we're not going to do that. And then it pops up another 6 months and it's like, oh crap, we probably should do it. It's so hard. Yeah, wholesale, it's a different model. There's pros and cons to it. But you kind of like have your stake in the ground, like this is what we're willing to do and not do. And buying a company it takes guts to buy a company that's successful and that's working, and then say, I'm going to shift and do something different with it and assume I know more than the old owners did. Because like, oh, obviously, why don't I wholesale? Well, it's funny because I've talked to almost every other Coop company owner out there. Not all of them, a lot of them though, and just asked about their business and gotten to know them. They're all great people. And a lot of them just went straight to wholesale. They went straight to third party marketplace. They went to Chewy, they went to Amazon, Walmart, and they're like, let's pull back because the barrier to entry is so low, competition is high. So then they pull back and they say, well, if only we can get into a brick and mortar because there's a higher barrier to entry. Because there's only so much floor space. And then like, oh, but if we could just sell on our website, that's what we'd love. So we started here and we're like, well, let's rush to go where they are when they're all trying to rush to where we are. And that's it's tempting because of the volume and the exposure you get in the eyeballs, but you kind of like if the other owners didn't, and it scares me a little bit to mess up what we've got going on, but maybe it's the right play. It's just hard to know.
yeah, I mean, you talk to anybody who's selling product through like Amazon, like one of the top things on their mind is how do we get people to come organically to our website?
Yeah.
And you guys have that already. So it's like volume versus like what you guys got going already, which is always this catch-22 and grass is always green on the other side. One of the things I do want to know is like how you were able to increase sales, because you hit this point pretty hard here for a second that I want to kind of sit on. Buying a business takes guts because a lot of times the person who owned the business before, they've been there for 20, 30 years. They're an expert in that industry. You go in and want to buy that business. What makes you think you know better than them? Takes confidence and almost an arrogance. And you were able to do that and then grow the business. So I guess my question here is like, how do you grow a business that was on a good trajectory already?
Yeah. So if you think about econ, how many eyeballs can you get to your site and how do you convert them? We saw that they had a great guy in marketing who ran their marketing ship. I think he may have been part owner or something, like he was at least an equity partner in there, maybe a buddy, but he had, I don't know, a lot of excitement about what he had built. And it was like major zip code work, but not this side of the street where we're going to focus eyeballs. And it was really, I think, really restrictive. And so when we came in, we literally just opened it up and said, no, we don't care what side of the street you live on. Let's just get more exposure. And that was a big shift because now all of our ad spend and all of our focus was no longer just in these core markets. It was a lot bigger. So I think that was a big one. And we doubled down. We spent a ton of money on ads. We spent a ton of money on getting out there. We did a couple podcasts. No one probably saw them. We did some PR work. Nobody probably don't read it. Probably didn't do anything, but we just worked at getting as many eyeballs as we could to the site. And if you look at those Shopify analytics on website views, it's over 100x. But I will tell you one of my favorite things that we did, and this was my business partner's idea. His name's Chris. I can stop calling him business partner, but Chris had this great idea. He's like, we need some sort of calculator, something that people can engage with. And we created this chick breed selector. So it's pretty awesome. You go to our website, you can go to breed selector and you can, like, if you want a chicken that lays 4 eggs or more, or 4 eggs or less, or you want a non-broody hen, or you want cold climate chickens versus hot climate chickens, we put all these variants and all the data is out there on chickens. And so we put this breed selector so people could help like build their flock based on what they were looking for. Number of eggs they wanted, climate they lived in, bunch of other attributes. And within, I'm not joking, within probably 2 months, we ranked if you just typed in a chicken name, we ranked to the top in Google.
So did you built this tool as like, hey, we want our customers to engage in something, but did this actually turn into like a lead gen where people were like, find out what type of chicken is best for me, and then it would direct them basically to your site,
Oh,
like,
yeah.
and get them in the
Oh,
pipeline?
yeah. Yeah, and if you just type in Rhode Island Red, you just type in a chicken, you're going to see the Chicken Coop Company's breed selector because you can read all about it. And it's just SEO optimized. It's a really useful tool, but it also ranks really high. And so we built that, and we had more page views or just as many to that chick selector as we did to our main Coop page within a couple months. Like, it didn't even actually take that time. Like, we're talking like 50,000 people a month and to 100,000. So it's just boom. And so now so what we did with that is we just said, well, let's start selling chicks. So we now have a great hatchery that we work with. And so now people can order chicks right directly from our website, and we ship them in the mail.
You ship chickens in the mail?
Yeah.
George, we can cut this out, but Danny, I haven't mentioned this throughout our podcast yet. I was also a big chicken guy when I was a kid. So we had
Yeah.
Rhode Island Reds and Americanas, won first place at the
Yeah.
county fair, and our chicks all came in the mail, like in a box. I was like, what?
Yeah. Yeah. Don't cut that out. That's great. They have a whole process, a whole FedEx and USPS have a whole partnership to get chicks from hatchery to right to your door. And the USPS does a great job of keeping them alive and getting them to your house.
When Jeff asked you what's something that people don't know about
Yes.
the chicken industry, this
That's
should have been it. This should have been it. Like, along with your Amazon packages, there's live. So, okay, so this chicken calculator thing is pretty impressive. I do have a question on top of it. Like, chicken coop sales, because the quality of the product, it's virtually oftentimes a one-time purchase, right?
Yeah.
How do you take a one-time person and then turn them into a repeat customer? And it sounds like the answer here is like hatchery and ancillary products to it.
Yeah, there's a consumable market. So you have like bedding. And so we sell bedding on our website. We'll sell some of those consumables. Feed is hard though. That's like if we're actually gonna like we've looked at buying a chicken feed company or we've looked at sourcing it. It's a mess just trying to store it, mice control, and also it's food. The FDA or the government, they treat animal food just as rigorously as they do human food. So there's a
Oh, my.
whole learning curve there, and also just to preserve it, we're just like we'll just partner with somebody. So we've got some really great partners on the feed side where we'll get a little bit of revenue, but we offer their products. But it's a hard question. One thing that I'll say is there's a thing called chicken math. I don't know if you're familiar with chicken math, but if
Nope.
you have, let's say you start with 4 chickens, you got this small backyard and you're pretty excited, so you get 4 chickens. Within 2 years, you're going to have 8 to 10. They just
Okay.
And it's not that they're hatching eggs or anything. It's just you can't stop buying them. And you might let's say you lose one chicken, but you really want 4 chickens. So you go to the store and you come back with 3. Now you have 6 chickens, and then you might, it's crazy. So if somebody starts with a smaller coop, they'll jump into a bigger coop maybe.
So Danny, kind of, recapping and then looking forward, you see opportunity in this business. You start by, it sounds like, reducing a lot of the costs. You saw opportunity for cost savings. You blow up on Shopify. You build this great lead gen tool. You increase your revenue. What's next? Where do you go from here?
It's funny, me and Chris, we had a meeting in January, went down to Florida. He lives down in Tennessee, flew down. He has a place in Florida. So went down there for a couple of days. I'm like, we're going to say no to a lot of things. And we're never going to ask about them again. Cause we just keep cycling through ideas. And as I was thinking about that meeting and how we could talk about it, I looked at our business as almost like a golf game where the front 9 strategy is totally different than the back 9. And I'm a horrible golfer. Anybody who watches this who's golfed with me, I'm not good. But the front 9 strategy is totally different than back 9 because the back 9 is a slow death, right? To nothing. And so how do we one, bolster the front 9, what strategies, and then what strategies back here to help flatten that curve? And I'm really excited about the strategies on the back half that we're going to do. So I'm just thinking and praying about like, what can we sell? We've got on one of the highest ranking chicken coop sites online. I mean, we're going to be top 3. That's hard to get. We're there because of it's a great domain. We drive a lot of traffic. It's awesome. How do we use that to sell more products? Because everything chicken related falls off a cliff, even your winter supply. So everybody will buy their heater in November and then nothing. They'll buy all their bedding and then nothing. So it's really hard to sell chicken related products in the winter. And the name of our site is chickencoopcompany.com. So a lot of our competitors started selling cat houses, dog houses, sheds, hunting shacks, blind, like all these different things that are sort of to the same market and manufacturing wise relate. I'm a chicken coop company. You don't want to buy a dog house from the chicken coop company. And I don't want to sell dog houses. I'm not really into it. So what do we do? And so what I did is I just thought, well, where can we sell more chicken coops? Where is it warm in the winter months? And so Australia has the exact opposite time frame than we do, where their summer is January, I think it's December to, or their summer is December to March, December to February. So I'm going to start selling chicken coops in Australia this year.
Got a couple questions to end it on. Knowing what you know now, you're a chicken coop expert, the Kingpin. What would you give your advice to yourself back in the early days, or someone else looking to buy a business now?
So early days when I bought the business, or before I bought the business?
Before you bought the business. Before you bought the business.
100%. I feel like we get these little moments of discontentment in our jobs or in our life or something. And I think that's a moment to pick your head up, or at least whether God's planting a seed in your head that just says, you know what, I've got something better for you, or this isn't really the thing I have for you. Don't just pick your head up and start looking around and just quit your job and go, but really start believing that you can chase a dream. A part-time job that I have, I'm going to talk about this, is talking with other sales leaders or other salespeople who hate their life and want to do something different, but just don't have the stones to do it. And I'm biased. I'm like, jump off the cliff. So I always warn people before I talk to them, like, just so you know, I'm biased here. My advice is going to be, if one of the options is quit, do it. Because once you get in a position that you're forced to make something work, you will. And I don't know how many entrepreneurs I've talked to and people who have bought businesses or started businesses where they had a slush button. This happened to me. You had your fund. We had saved for that year off. Like, we knew we wanted to do it. So we had saved for it. So we were financially prepared. Some people call it FU money. I call it freedom money. Like, if you don't like your job, go quit. You got forced. So we created that fund to be able to live a year. And I swear, everybody I talk to, they don't find success until they see the bottom of that bank account, or until they start to get a little squirrely, or until something is like, something's got to move or this isn't going to work. That's usually when something hits. And you can't get there working your job and pursuing an entrepreneurship career. You got to jump all in. And then I think something comes out in you that makes that company successful, and you get scrappy.
Lastly, where can people find you and your company online?
Well, that is chickencoopcompany.com. Go buy a coop, go buy birds. It's the best decision you'll make. Spring's right around the corner. You can find us there. Literally, my dumb face is right all over that website, so you can see it. If you reach out, we've got a phenomenal team. So that's something we did, is we bolstered team. We have the best support staff. They're the best. And so you can reach out there. You can get me on LinkedIn. You can reach me at Danny@chickencoopcompany.com. I'm all in.
Perfect. Well, I'll put all that in the show notes, but really want to thank you, Danny, for taking the time to walk us through your journey. This has been super interesting. I feel like I know now more about chickens and coops than probably anyone on the planet other than you and your team. So super, super insightful. And thanks for the time.